Okay, let us look at some more vocabulary here. Okay, so let's look at perfect squares first here. So perfect squares are basically numbers, say numbers, whose square roots are integers. So I'll say integers or quotients of integers. Integers. Okay, those are perfect squares. So again, these numbers are numbers whose square roots are integers. So I'm going to say 1. I know the square root of 4 is going to be a positive number, right? So that's going to be 2 times 2 is 4. And 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. Right? We go 25, then 36, 49, 64, 81, 100. 121, 144, right? And we could continue on and on and on there, right? But what this last part is saying, the quotients of integers part, is basically saying that let's call it like 1/16 is actually a perfect square. It's 1 over 4 squared, right? And so it's something to kind of think about there as well. Okay. Now, irrational numbers. Okay. So basically, what's going to happen is if we have a number as our radicand who is not a perfect square, let's say again like radical 7, I think is a good example of that. Okay. This is going to be an irrational number. Okay. So basically, we're going to say the result is a I'll call it never-ending decimal. In fact, it does actually end at some point, but I'll call it a never-ending decimal that has no pattern. Okay, so if you try to take the square root of a non-perfect square number, you will have an irrational number. Okay, and so the last thing that I guess we can discuss is just a radical expression. Okay, and this is basically just going to involve square roots. Okay, so basically I'm just going to say it's an expression that involves square roots. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at a few simple examples of just evaluating this. So it's going to feel exactly like what we did before. Okay, but we're going to be plugging in some different numbers here. Okay, so the first example, we're going to evaluate b squared minus 4 times a times c for those given values. Okay, so let's take a quick look here. So this is a radical expression, and let's underline the information that we know. I'll go ahead and put this part here. Maybe I'll underline A, B, and C in different colors. Okay, and so we're doing, it's a positive square root, so it's b squared minus 4ac. So I'm going to do this b squared part, so I'll do negative 2 squared. I'm going to write now minus 4 times a, I'm going to put in green, times c, which I will put in red. Okay, now this is the part that we actually want to do first. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and we're really just doing the order of operations here, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the exponents, right? So negative 2 squared is negative 2 times negative 2, which gives us positive 4. Okay, so I can just write out the rest of this if you really want to, and but again, we're basically just going to have this next part. Okay, so at this next part now I have this kind of string of multiplication, if you want to think of it like that. Okay, it's basically this string of multiplication where we have negative 4 times 1 times negative 3. Okay, well what this ends up actually giving us, negative 4 times 1 times negative 3, is going to give us a positive 12. Okay, so what we end up with now is the square root of 4 plus 12. Okay, and that is obviously, we're going to continue for the order of operations here. That is going to give us the square root of 16. Okay, and now as soon as we've combined everything to the best of our abilities, now we take the square root of 16. We know the square root of 16, or the positive square root of 16, is just going to be 4. Okay, so 4 would be our final answer here. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at one more example. Okay, so our second example here, it's the same thing where A is 7, B is 8, and C is 1. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and underline our important info here using different colors. Okay, I'll write my jumbo radical, and I'll plug in the information that we know. Right, so B squared, this will be 8 squared. Okay, minus 4 times A times C. So 4 times 7 times 1. Okay, and so let's go ahead and do the order of operations here. Again, this radical can be thought of as a grouping symbol, so we're going to do everything on the inside of that first using the order of operations. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is do the exponents, right? So 8 squared is going to give us 64. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is the multiplication going from left to right. Okay, so again, this is the same thing basically as now negative 4 times 7 times 1, which in the end here is going to give us a negative 28. Okay, and so now we look at 64 minus 28. We want to know what that is. So I'm just going to do that on the side. 64 minus 28. Do a little borrowing here. So 14 minus 8 is going to give me 6. 5 minus 2 is 3. So I get the square root of 36, right? Or the positive square root of 36, which I know is just 6, right? Because 6 times 6 gives you 36. Therefore, 6 is the square root of 36. Okay? And so again, b squared minus 4ac is actually going to play a really big role in what we do here coming up.